Dad said he'd only help me start a business if I promised to work on it day and night and give my deadbeat brother 50% of the shares. Well, now he's threatening to sue for misleading his poor son because I took the loan, then bought out my brother's share, who sold it as soon as we made our first profit to go on a trip with his GF. Because now we are making 20x profit to what he sold himself away for. I'm 27 male, my brother Kyle's 25 male, and my dad Jim is 57. This whole thing started about a year and a half ago, and I finally decided to stop wasting time and try to start something on my own. I'd worked in tech support for 5 years after college, saved some money but not enough to launch anything major, and I had this idea to start a local delivery service app that focused only on essentials in suburban areas that were underserved. I pitched the idea to a few people, but no one wanted to risk their money. My dad had always run small businesses but never anything scalable. When I went to him, he said he'd give me a loan, not an investment, just a regular loan with a timeline, only if I agreed to a couple of conditions. The first one was fair. I had to commit to working on it day and night, full-time, no part-time jobs, no other side gigs. The second one made my stomach sink. He said I had to give Kyle, my younger brother, 50% of the shares. I will not sugarcoat it, Kyle's a deadbeat. He's never held down a job for more than a couple of months, dropped out of community college, spent most of his time playing video games or doing half-baked side hustles, and was living rent-free in our parents' basement. I did not even know why Dad wanted to drag him into this, but my dad said it was for the family and he was only giving me the loan if I agreed. I was desperate and stupidly hopeful, so I signed the agreement. Terms were clear. I would get $50,000 as a loan from my dad to be repaid in 3 years with a modest interest, and Kyle would be 50% partner on paper. I asked if Kyle was going to help with anything, and my dad just shrugged and said maybe he'd find his rhythm. Kyle did not even attend any of the initial planning meetings. I built the app with the help of a couple of freelancers I found online, did all the market research, created partnerships with a few local vendors and grocery stores, set everything up myself. When we launched, we made barely any money for the first couple of months. I kept pushing. I worked like a machine, doing 18-hour days, promoting it myself, handing out flyers, managing orders, debugging the app, calling vendors. Kyle did not even log in once, not once. He did not even install the app, he just kept saying it was my thing. He posted once about it on his Instagram story and then said he was done doing free promo. I was annoyed, but I kept my mouth shut. I had to pay back my dad, and I was not going to let Kyle's laziness ruin everything. Then something clicked around month 5. I signed a deal with a local co-op that gave me exclusive access to their products. That led to a spike in new users. Then a popular local mom influencer gave us a shout-out. Suddenly we were averaging around $800 in daily profit. I was reinvesting everything back, barely paying myself, and right after our first profitable month, Kyle hit me up saying he wanted to cash out his share. No conversation, no discussion, he just said he wanted money for a trip to Florida with his girlfriend Megan, and he was tired of waiting for something to happen. I told him it was too early and that things were finally picking up, but he didn't care. He said he wanted out now and that if I did not buy him out, he'd try to sell his shares to someone else. I did not want to take risks with a stranger holding 50% of the business, so I agreed. I took out a small loan from a credit union, gave Kyle $15,000. He was thrilled and left for Florida 2 days later. Posted a bunch of pics with Megan at some beach resort and did not even bother telling my dad. I figured it was done and I was finally free to move forward. I worked nonstop the next few months, used the momentum we had, hired a couple delivery drivers and a part-time customer support rep, started paid ads and added pharmacy essentials to the app. That exploded our growth. In the next quarter we made $120,000 in net profit. I did not realize how fast things could scale once the foundation was strong. We added another 2 cities, signed up more vendors, and integrated with a couple local POS systems. I still paid myself very little, but I was no longer stressed about survival. Everything was running well, and for once I felt like I made the right call. Then out of nowhere my dad called me and said we needed to talk. He came over to my apartment with a bunch of printed emails and screenshots Kyle had apparently sent him. Kyle had told him he sold his share under pressure and did not realize how valuable it was. He'd copied some old WhatsApp messages between us and tried to frame it like I misled him. Dad was furious and accused me of robbing my own brother. I tried to explain that Kyle pushed for the buyout, that he did not contribute anything, and that he used the money to vacation with his girlfriend, not invest it elsewhere. But Dad did not want to hear it. He kept repeating that I took advantage of Kyle's ignorance and that family was not about tricking each other. And then he started threatening legal action, said he could sue me for misleading Kyle during a family-arranged agreement, that I breached some moral contract. It was insane. I reminded him that he gave me a loan, not a legal partnership deal, and Kyle willingly sold his shares with no pressure. Dad then pulled out this letter that Kyle had apparently drafted with some sketchy lawyer saying he wanted 20% of the business or cash equivalent to current valuation. It was the most absurd moment of my life. Kyle's claim was that he only sold because I convinced him the business was dying and made it seem like it was doing worse than it was. He was basically saying I lied and misrepresented the financial health of the company at the time of the sale. He conveniently forgot that he was completely uninvolved and never even asked to see any numbers. The only messages we had were him demanding money and me telling him it was a bad time to sell but I'd buy him out if he wanted to leave. What made it worse was that my dad started going around telling extended family that I cheated my brother. My uncle called me saying I should have just given Kyle more money or maybe a percentage in future profits. I was stunned. I built this thing from scratch. I sacrificed years, sleep, friendships. Kyle sat around and played Call of Duty while I risked everything, and now I was being painted as the villain. And Dad had the audacity to say he regretted giving me the loan not because of the business but because I was not a team player. I reminded him that Kyle did not even show up to one vendor meeting. Not one, but Dad kept saying business is about loyalty and I broke that. Now I'm getting emails from some lawyers saying we need to enter mediation or they will consider legal action. It's not an actual lawsuit yet, but it's enough to be annoying. I have had to hire a business attorney just to get ahead of it. He says the case is weak and that Kyle has no proof of coercion or misrepresentation, but it could still be dragged out. All because I bought Kyle out when he wanted a vacation. And the irony is the amount of money he got from me is now 20 times less than what his share would be worth. If he had just held on for 6 more months he would have had 6 figures, but he traded it for margaritas on a beach and now he's crying foul, and my dad is fully backing him, saying I should make it right because the family is more important than money. They don't see the work. They don't see the risk. All they see is the success after the fact and act like it was owed to them. So now I'm trying to run my business while defending myself from my own family. I'm paying off a lawyer with the money I should have been investing back into the expansion, and Kyle's out there posting memes and travel pics like he's living his best life while sending lawyers after me behind the scenes. The worst part is my dad still thinks I'm the one who betrayed everyone. He told my mom I'm greedy and manipulating people. Mom's stuck in the middle trying to keep peace, but I can tell she thinks I should just have given Kyle a second chance or more money. But I know what happened. I know what I did, and I know I built something on my own even if no one in my family respects it. So now I have just one question left to ask. Hey Ida. Update 1. Hi, it's been a while since I updated and things have only gotten messier since my last post. The business is still doing insanely well. Better than I ever imagined, honestly, and I'm trying to just keep my head down and focus on what's working, but my dad and brother seem hell-bent on making sure I never get a moment's peace. After that whole buyout thing and Kyle running off to Florida with his girlfriend, I thought maybe they'd calm down once they realized the business was out of his hands. Turns out I underestimated how bitter and petty people can get when they realize they fumbled their own bag and someone else is finally winning without them. So here's what happened. After Kyle's so-called lawyer emails did not get the reaction they were hoping for, they switched tactics. Suddenly I start hearing from my cousins and extended relatives, people I had not spoken to in years, and they're all saying the same thing in different ways. Maybe I should have handled things differently. That Kyle was young and confused, that family is more important than money, that dad's really hurt and just wants his sons to be close again. I could smell the guilt trip from a mile away. Clearly my dad was going around spinning some emotional version of events and trying to paint me as this cold-hearted business guy who tricked his poor baby brother into giving up something valuable. The crazy part is some of them actually believed it. One aunt straight up told me that Kyle was always more emotionally sensitive and that I should have protected him from his own impulsive decisions. I asked her if she knew Kyle had not done a single thing for the business or even opened the app. She did not have much to say after that. Meanwhile, Kyle's been posting vague stuff on his socials like motivational quotes about betrayal and losing what you deserve. Passive-aggressive stories clearly aimed at me and tagging our dad in all of them like they are some tragic duo wronged by the world. I ignored it at first, but it got under my skin eventually. Then one day I opened the app dashboard and noticed a weird spike in negative reviews in one specific delivery zone. All posted within a short time, all using the same tone like they were copied and pasted. Turns out Kyle had a couple of friends leave fake 1-star reviews to try and tank our rating in that zone. Thankfully it did not do much. Our regular customers didn't pay attention and I was able to report most of the fake ones and get them removed. But it pissed me off and I called him out on it through text and he just replied saying I deserved worse for stabbing my own blood in the back. I blocked him after that. But the real spice came when Dad decided to try and sabotage a vendor deal I'd been working on for weeks. I was in the final stages of signing an exclusive deal with a growing organic farm chain that would have given us early access to their products and a big marketing push in return. It would have taken our profit margins up by a good 30%. I showed up to the meeting and guess who's already sitting there talking to the guy who runs the farm? Yep, Dad. Telling him how the business was built using a family loan and that I'd pushed my own brother out unfairly and that they should reconsider dealing with someone who does not honor agreements. Thankfully the farm guy had common sense and told me later that he did not want to get in the middle of family drama and he still signed with us, but it was a wake-up call. I realized Dad was not just mad, he was actively trying to get in the way of what I was building. I don't think he even cared about Kyle's cut at that point. I think he just could not stand that I did not need his approval anymore. I didn't say anything to him directly, but I did stop repaying the loan early. I had been making extra payments trying to clear the loan faster, but after that stunt I figured I would just stick to the minimum schedule. No more favors, no more trying to prove myself. If he wants to treat me like the enemy, fine, but he does not get early payments and he definitely does not get any gratitude. And the funniest part in all of this, Kyle's broke again. Megan dumped him after the Florida trip when he ran out of money and now he's back in the basement playing the same games and tweeting about hustle culture. I heard from a mutual friend that he tried pitching some terrible crypto project to a few people and no one bit. He even messaged one of my drivers asking if we were hiring and the driver sent me the screenshot. I did not respond, but it made me laugh. This guy sold his future away for a beach trip and now wants to crawl back like nothing happened. I'm not going to lie, it's been exhausting. Trying to grow something real while your family is out there treating you like a villain takes a toll. I have stopped going to family dinners and gatherings. Mom keeps trying to play peacemaker, but I told her I'm not setting foot in that house until they stop acting like I owe Kyle something just because he shares my blood. Blood does not build apps. Blood does not do market research or work late nights fixing bugs or make deliveries in the rain. I did all that, and if they can't see that, they do not get a seat at my table. The business is scaling fast. We are expanding into 2 more states and I'm finally paying myself properly. I have hired a full-time team and I'm working on raising capital to take this to the next level. I thought maybe success would make all of this easier, but it just made people more bitter. I do not regret buying Kyle out. I do not regret working day and night for something I believed in. I only regret thinking for even 1 second that my family would be happy for me when I finally made it. Update 2. Hi again. So things did not calm down after that last update. In fact, they got even more ridiculous. The business kept growing, which is great, but it seems like the more successful it gets, the more obsessed Kyle and my dad become with inserting themselves back into it. I have not spoken to either of them directly in months, but somehow they still find ways to drag my name through every family circle like I ran off with their inheritance or something. It's wild how people who did not lift a single finger when I was struggling now feel entitled to everything the moment it starts working. A few weeks after the vendor sabotage attempt from my dad, I started hearing this new rumor through cousins that I manipulated Kyle during a mental health crisis. Apparently now the narrative is that Kyle was struggling emotionally and I took advantage of that to buy him out. This was not something he said publicly. It was the kind of whisper game story that spreads in families where no one asks for receipts but everyone loves drama. I was not surprised that Kyle was spinning the story this way, but hearing it repeated by people who never checked on me when I was working 20-hour days honestly made me sick. At the same time I noticed Dad posting subtle jabs online too. Stuff like supporting your kids does not mean letting them walk all over each other, or family businesses should be rooted in trust, not ego. Stuff like that. He still had not said anything directly to me, but the message was clear. I wasn't going to play into it, but it started affecting other areas too. One of the local banks I was working with for expanding payment options suddenly asked for more documents and proof of ownership structure. When I asked what changed, they said there had been anonymous inquiries into whether there were disputes over ownership. I knew instantly it was either Kyle or Dad trying to spook them, probably hoping they'd slow me down. Luckily I had everything airtight and clean on paper, so it did not go anywhere, but the fact that they'd go that far to poke holes in what I have built just confirmed I made the right decision cutting them out. The irony in all of this is that Kyle literally posted about flipping sneakers a month ago like he was some self-made entrepreneur. The dude posted a reel of himself packaging up used Jordans and captioned it with some garbage like building from scratch and everyone's a CEO until it's time to work. I did not even get mad, I just laughed. This is the same guy who could not stick to anything for more than 2 weeks and needed 15 grand for me to fund a vacation. But now that I'm making real money and getting attention, he suddenly wants to be seen as someone who was wronged and robbed of a kingdom he never helped build. And speaking of attention, the business has now started getting small media mentions, local business articles, startup blogs, even a small segment on a regional morning show. I kept it professional, never mentioned any family stuff, always focused on the team and what we have accomplished. But the moment those clips started circulating, I got a message from my mom basically begging me to come home and talk to Dad. She said he's embarrassed that people keep asking why his name was never mentioned, how come Kyle's not involved anymore. Apparently it's been bruising his ego that his loan money was not turned into a legacy that included both his sons under his guidance. I did not respond because I knew what would happen if I walked into that house. It would be the same guilt trip about blood and loyalty and sacrifice, the same crap they always pour to make me feel like I owe them more than I already gave. Meanwhile, the business just crossed a huge milestone. We hit our first $1 million in revenue and locked down 2 massive distribution partnerships that are going to take us into 3 new cities. I threw a small celebration with the team, nothing crazy, just good food and appreciation. The mood was amazing and it was one of the first nights in months where I felt actual joy without that cloud of family drama over my head. And of course that's the same week Kyle posts a story saying people will smile in your face while stealing your future. Someone sent it to me and I rolled my eyes so hard it hurt. The worst part is I can tell they are not done. I heard Kyle recently tried to contact one of our vendors directly and claimed he still had a claim to the company. The vendor called me and asked if there had been some shakeup or change in leadership. I explained everything, sent over the legal documentation of the buyout, and they dropped it immediately, but it shook me a little. Kyle's not going to stop unless he sees this business crash or unless he somehow gets his hands back on a piece of it, and Dad's still feeding that delusion by standing behind him like he's the golden child who got cheated. People keep telling me to just sit down with them and work it out like family, but they weren't there when I was up at 3 a.m. trying to fix broken deliveries or refund angry customers or pitch vendors who did not believe in me. Kyle never asked how the app worked or what my plan was. He just waited until it made money and then bailed at the first chance to cash out, and now that I made something real I'm supposed to act like he was some co-founder who got edged out unfairly. The only thing I'm focused on now is protecting what I have built. I have got NDAs in place, all my paperwork sorted, and I'm staying 10 steps ahead. I have learned the hard way that sometimes family can be your biggest liability if you give them. Update 3. Hi again. Didn't think I'd be back with another update this soon, but things have taken an even weirder turn. Just when I thought Kyle and my dad had run out of ways to interfere, they somehow managed to get even more creative with their nonsense. The business is still climbing and we have started beta testing a subscription model for premium deliveries in high demand zones. It's working better than expected and the early sign-ups are strong. It should have been a moment where I could finally breathe a bit and focus on scaling. Instead, I've been busy dodging more drama, more guilt-tripping, and more pathetic stunts from 2 people who still believe they deserve a piece of something they did not lift a damn finger to build. So here's what happened. A couple of weeks ago, I started getting messages from random people on Instagram and Facebook. Not customers, just people from my hometown and nearby areas asking weird questions like, was not your brother your co-founder? Or did not your dad help start the business with you and your brother? At first, I ignored it. Figured it was just gossip from the same family circles my dad loved to rant in. Then someone sent me a screenshot of a Facebook post Kyle made in a local entrepreneur group. He went on this long rant about how he was pushed out of his own company by a controlling sibling who promised to build something together but cut him out once money started coming in. The comments were full of strangers saying things like, you should fight for what's yours, and classic betrayal story. The worst part was he never mentioned me by name, just called me his older brother and made it vague enough to avoid any legal issues but obvious enough for anyone who knew us to connect the dots. That would have been annoying on its own, but then I found out he started selling some fake motivational course online claiming to teach people how to launch an app-based business using his own experience. Yes, the same guy who never once opened the back end, never spoke to a single vendor, never made a single business decision, was now acting like he built the foundation and got tricked out of it. He even used old early mock-up designs I had sent him during development and photoshopped himself into a screenshot of our team meeting. I was speechless. People were actually paying for his nonsense because he was playing the victim card so well. And the part that made it spicier? Dad was promoting it on his Facebook too. They both doubled down on this fantasy version of the story where Kyle was the brains and I was just a greedy brother who cut him loose the second we made money. I did not respond publicly. I never do. I've kept things quiet because last thing I want is to get into an online war with my own family. But behind the scenes I started cleaning up everything, updated all our public bios and press info to clearly show sole ownership, strengthened our internal policies around brand use and quietly sent a cease and desist to the platform Kyle was using for his fake course. It got taken down a few days later. I did not hear anything directly from him, but I saw him post another cryptic story about snakes hiding in plain sight. At this point it's just pathetic. He can't stand the fact that he sold his shares for $15,000 and now the business is worth more than $500,000. But just when I thought I'd handled the worst of it, my dad did something that really crossed the line. We had this neighborhood association event back in my hometown, something we used to attend every year growing up. I had not gone in a while, but my parents were still regulars. Turns out Dad got up during one of the small business panels and told the crowd how disappointed he was that a business he helped fund and build had become a symbol of betrayal. He said his youngest son had been stripped of his rightful place and that money had changed people. Again, no names, just vague enough. But enough people knew what he was talking about that I started getting messages that night from former teachers and neighbors. Some were just shocked. Others were full of passive comments like, "Hope you and your brother work things out or your dad looks heartbroken." I'm not going to lie, that one stung. Not because I care what the neighbors think, but because it made me realize how far my dad was willing to go to rewrite the story. He had convinced himself that the loan he gave me came with some kind of lifetime access to control the direction of my life. He could not accept that I took his money, followed his dumb condition of giving Kyle 50% and still ended up making something successful without needing either of them once it got off the ground. And it was not about the money anymore. It was about control. He wanted to say he built a legacy with both his sons. Instead, one bailed out for beer and beach pics and the other one did not play by the script. Right now, I'm moving forward faster than ever. Our expansion into 2 new cities has gone smoother than expected. I've hired 2 more ops managers and a marketing lead to handle our growth phase. We are closing in on our second million in revenue and I'm finally about to move out of my tiny apartment into a house that I actually own. None of this would have happened if I had waited around for my family to get on board or given Kyle more chances. And I think that's what really eats at them. They know I don't need them and nothing burns more than realizing you gave away the only thing that could have made you relevant. They will keep talking. They will keep twisting the story. I have accepted that now. Let them. While they're busy trying to convince the world they were robbed, I will be busy building something they will never get a piece of again. Update 4. Hi, I just wanted to give a quick final update and close this out. The business has now officially expanded into 5 cities and we are averaging profits I used to only dream about. I bought my first house last month, something I never thought would happen this soon. We are partnering with bigger names now and things are only going up. I've not spoken to Kyle or my dad since the last stunt at that neighborhood event. Kyle's still throwing pity parties online and Dad's still acting like I'm the problem. But I've stopped caring. They chose their narrative and I chose peace. Mom still calls now and then, says she wishes things were different, but even she knows I'm better off keeping